thought I'd do a little video. Hopefully you can hear me. I am having issues with audio and mics, etc. So fingers crossed it all does work. You can hear me. I've tried to do it when things have gone a bit quiet. Probably on about the third or fourth take at the moment, probably on this. Anyway, now let's see whether you can actually hear me. I'm going to explain why the spine of the arrow is critical for any bow style that you shoot, from longbow, recurve, bare bow, Olympic style recurve, etc, etc. It's basically getting the spine of the arrow, or how much the arrow bends, is critical for anything you're doing with regard to shooting. For a prime example, would you go motor racing and not tune your car to do that particular race and that particular circuit? No. Would you, if you're heavy into your golf, go and find the best set of golf clubs that suit you to make you shoot better, or not shoot better, go and hit the ball better? No, you wouldn't. You'd go and find so it makes you work with what you want to do. If you're doing swimming or anything like that, you're going to go and find yourself the best kit to wear, or even down to your running shoes that suit your feet, feel comfortable and make you run better. Exactly the same with your archery kit. And majority of the time you'll find that probably 70 to 75% of most issues with people shooting is they haven't sorted out the arrow spines, and even the pile weight, to make sure you get what you need and performance out of your bow. I'm going to do a load of little videos all together, from me shooting to slow-mos here, to try to see how the arrow comes out of the bow and how much straighter it goes. Hopefully it explains everything. It's a follow-up to what Robin Anthelay did of Arrows of Anthelay, or Robin of Nottingham, which he calls himself. He's heavily into the war bows and part of the war bow guys. Now, it doesn't matter what principle you're on or however you're shooting, the same principle does end up applying. Get the spine right, how much bend of your arrow shaft works, because you just want to make sure that you're transferring all the energy, bow limb into string into arrow. So let's see if this works. I'm not a great shot. I'm really out of practice, let's put it out that way. Hopefully you'll be able to see what's going on, and it all makes sense, and hopefully you can see what's going on with the arrows. As I said, I'm going to do multiple shots, slow-mos in different directions. The fingers crossed you can see the pattern. Step back a bit and see how it pans out. Okay. That's me. I'm not slowed down enough, not come down enough. Do that again. But you can see the line for the dot. Lovely. That's better. Getting closer. Getting closer still. So yeah, basically you'll see in the other videos, I'll explain a load more of making sure you get the spine of your arrow to match what your style you're shooting and the kit you're shooting. It's critical, folks. It's part of the vital parts of your kit. You are tuning your kit to the way you shoot and the style you shoot and what goes on. The spine of the arrow can also help absorb bow shock in your hand, because if you get the wrong spine, it basically, you're not transferring all the energy from the bow into the arrow, the correct form of motion, so it's transferring it back into the bow, so you start getting hand shock and it feels weird and horrible. Avoid all that. Yes, you can go off a bow, you can go off arrow charts, yes you can try all that, but in the end it doesn't really work, because everyone's hands are different sizes, everyone shoots a different size glove. If you're shooting thumb ring, everyone's got a different size thumb, everyone's shooting a different size thumb ring, everyone's got different width of shoulders, everyone draws up slightly differently because they don't do full rotation, everyone's got a different size bow. All of that comes into factors. even if you're doing trigger release on your compounds or your unlimited recurves, or what style of trigger are you using? How does everything roll off? Even down to how the string rolls through your fingers. All of that changes everything for each person. So trying to go off of arrow charts is not always the best way. You have to go somewhere, if you can, and who's got lots of arrows already spined up, already in spine batches with different pile points on, different weights, and test it. There are the odd few people who have been doing this for absolutely ages, who have got the experience to tell you roughly what it will be, but it doesn't mean it's going to be exact. If you can spend the time to go somewhere and they allow you to stand on their range in one of the shops or wherever and use all their variety of arrows to see what works out of your bows, and I'm saying bows because you may have multiple bows and the same arrows will not come out the same way out of each bow. So see what happens. Go and do it. If you've got to go and pay 45, 60 quid to do it, do it. In the long run, it will save you hundreds of pounds. And that's what you're after. Save yourself money. Otherwise, you're just going to be spending hundreds of pounds on arrows. Great for me, because you're shooting wooden arrows, you're breaking them every 5 minutes, and you wanted to buy arrow shafts from my stockists or from myself. But that's not the way of doing things. You need to be able to enjoy what you're doing. If you're demoralised because you're breaking arrows left, right and centre, go to somewhere where you can be assessed, you can go and shoot loads of arrows and try it. Right, the other part of the video that I was going to show you is multiple bows that I've got. That's what is basically a recurve. It's a bow that Chris Boyton partly developed. It's called a Riga. It's a homage to Dick Galloway. It's similar to bows that Dick Galloway used to make. All wooden apart from the back bit, which is what they call a tox horn. Effectively it's sawdust mixed with resin, but it's classed as a recurve with a shelf. Just going to put that to one side. Of course, you've seen my longbow. This is the one that I made with Chris Boyton, so it's classed as my #1 bow that I made. It was around the time when Chris was quite ill, so I did a lot of Chris sat on a stool and just watched me work, and he was quite surprised that I could use all the hand tools, not a problem. Son of a carpenter, had the tools always around me, always playing. Now, some of you may recognise a bow like that. It's a bit dusty, it's been hanging up a while. Very rarely use this now, but this was one of the first bows I properly bought. Came from Quicks. It's a Quicks Hunter, probably something like 28, 27 years old. This is the bow when I went to the Canuck National Championships for the NFAS back in 1996, I think it was. That's what I was shooting with wooden arrows. I find wooden arrows just suit the way I shoot. I've tried carbons, I've tried aluminiums. I just like the feel of wood. So I know how everything does pan out. Put those down. Now, comparing those bows to this, I'm going to grab an arrow. When you're on the long bows, everyone knows, depending on left or right-handed, click it on. And what ends up happening, you've got the 1/8 of the inch sharp, etc, etc. On a long bow, I'm going to point this towards the camera. You never point an arrow towards the camera, remember folks. Or towards any person whatsoever. Basically, when you're releasing the arrow, releasing the string of the bow, turning the energy, stored energy inside the wood of the bow, transferring it into the string, transferring it to the arrow. We're trying to move a stationary object. On the long bow, it's trying to go round the bow. So I'm going to put the bow down. So effectively, going around the long bow, I'm going to do it that way up. The arrow does that. Can you see it? These are my arrows. I'm happy to do what I'm doing. Can you see that's bending? That's almost what the arrow is doing. And that's why the spine's critical, no matter what bow you're shooting, because it will do the same, very similar on all the recurves. Even though it's very much a centre shot, you are shooting a bow that is transferring stored energy from the bow limbs itself through to the string through a static object. So you're transferring what I call kinetic energy. So you need to have the spine right, how much it bends or how much it can absorb from the power to get back straight again. There's a lot of people who call it the archer's paradox and things. Everyone's starting to move away from that. A lot of it is what they call arrow flight dynamics. So effectively, how the arrow comes out the bow and how it's not doing a wobble down the shooting lane. What you're after is the arrow to flex and come back again, and very, very minimal. You're not after it going like that, bobbing up and down. You're after it to bend slightly and then straighten up as quickly as possible. Doesn't matter whether you're shooting target or whether you're shooting field, exactly the same. Reasons why? The more the arrow is doing that, the more the energy is expelled by the arrow. So the less distance you're going to get, the less speed you're going to get. So the spining of the arrow is critical on all elements. Okay? Right, what I'm also going to do, grab another arrow. Self knock, plastic knock. Hopefully this works in the video. I'm just going to place that on there. See it's sitting, but what I'm after, it should almost slide off. There's no click or whatever. It might be a bit tight on this. It's not going to work, is it? When I want to do it, it's not going to work. Because I've put a different, say plastic knock. I'll do that again. So basically, there is a tiny little click, very, very tiny. Self knock's slightly different as to how it grips on slightly differently. The arrow's not going anywhere, but watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to tap the string, arrow falls off. Now, if you're trying to put too much effort to click your arrow on, or you've got too much of a click, what's the arrow trying to do when it's coming away from the bow? If you're trying to click too much, should almost be no click at all. Very, very small. The less click and the less resistance the arrow has got to come off the string, again, you're not losing the energy from the limbs, transferred to the string, transferred to the arrow. So basically, what you're doing, if that's clicked on too tight or it's got too much of a click, what will happen is you've got to use some of the energy / force to even get the arrow off the string. So you could end up losing 10 to 15 feet per second from your arrow, just by simple of that. Again, tuning things. Piece of sandpaper between the knock, just to file the knock out a bit, or an engineer's file. And again, just try it. Does that sound right? Right, okay, let's do tap, falls off, perfect. That's why you'll find a lot of my arrows, why they go so fast. So a lot of it's to do with the self knock, but I also do it with the plastic knocks. It's got hardly any resistance, and everyone's going, oh, it'll fall off when you full draw. No, if you've got a slight bit of resistance, very tiny amount, like you're probably hearing or seeing with that, the arrow will stay on there, and that works perfectly. Okay, folks, but it's critical. Again, tuning, customizing, sorting out the arrows to your bows, how you shoot, etc., etc. It's all critical to everything you're doing. And I can't stress enough, getting the spine right for your arrows is the key bare bow, doesn't matter. You've got to get the spine of the arrows to work and match with the bow you are shooting. I'm lucky because of how, for some miracle, I can shoot the same spine out of those two bows as well. The only thing I've got to change is the pile weight. Literally, I changed the pile weight that brings the arrow back round slightly better because it's more of a set shot. That's just a sheer miracle just because of the dead loose the way I shoot. And majority of it is I know with the bowwood bows how the bowyer, particularly with the ones that me and Chris have made and how the woods, is how and the time of how the laminations of the woods have got together. Different laminations of wood will give different characteristics of the bow. So you can have a bow that is exactly the same poundage, draw weight, but has different cores on it, so different woodsmen in it, and you'll have to shoot a different set of spined arrows just because of how the limbs is transferring the energy into the string, into the arrow. It could be it's going slower, it could be going faster, and it's simple as that. You've got to get the spine right, how much the arrow bends to absorb and transfer the bow energy in a forward motion. Make sense, folks? Hopefully that does. And hopefully all the videos coming together that I've put together will make sense and you can actually hear me because I'm having issues with the mics and with my phone, etc. Fingers crossed this all works. Okay, thanks folks.